This voice is taken from an article with the title, "Why Was the Bretton Woods System Abandoned?" which has been published on TraderTalks.net. The Bretton Woods system was a set of international moneta arrangements that regulated the international monetary system in the decades following the end of World War II. Under the Bretton Woods system, all countries pegged their currencies to the US dollar, which was in turn backed by gold. The system was designed to ensure stability in the international financial system and to facilitate trade and investment. However, the system was eventually abandoned in the early 1970s for a number of reasons. Firstly, the U.S. was running persistent balance of payments deficits, which were causing a depletion of its gold reserves. This put pressure on the USD, which was the reserve currency of the Bretton Woods system, and made it increasingly difficult for the U.S. to maintain the fixed exchange rate regime. Secondly, the Bretton Woods system was based on the assumption that international trade was balanced and that countries would not engage in excessive capital flows. However, this turned out to be an unrealistic assumption, as many countries were running persistent current account deficits and engaging in large capital flows. This was putting further pressure on the dollar and making it increasingly difficult for the U.S. to maintain the fixed exchange rate regime. Thirdly, the lack of international economic coordination and governance in the system meant that it was difficult to address any problems that arose. For example, when the U.S. began to devalue the dollar in the early 1970s, the lack of coordination between governments meant that there was no effective mechanism to address the issue. Finally, the system failed to take into account the emergence of new economic powers, such as Japan and Germany. As these countries began to grow in importance, the Bretton Woods system became increasingly outdated and was replaced by a more flexible exchange rate regime known as the floating exchange rate system. Thus, for a combination of these reasons, the Bretton Woods system was eventually abandoned in the early 1970s in favor of a new and more flexible exchange rate regime. This new regime allowed countries to set their own exchange rates and to manage their own monetary policies more independently.